Welcome, everybody. We're live. I told everybody they'd hear a little music, but I guess I wasn't as fast as I thought they was. We have a special guest up front. Phil Harris joining me as always. Phil, how are you today?
I'm doing well, doing well. Didn't be easy, but other than that, I'm doing well.
Tell you what, why don't you introduce our guest, because I'm really excited about having Coach Grant.
Okay, well, we want to welcome Coach Chad Grant from the Ider Hornets into the program. And, of course, I'm pretty sure here, Coach, this is your third year at Ider.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're excited about the upcoming season. But I want to start out asking one thing. You replaced Brent Tinker. What does Brent Tinker mean to this football program?
Well, Brent's been there a very long time, and I actually was a volunteer assistant with Coach Wells when Brent Tinker was playing at Ider. So I remember Brent as a player and also as a coach, and he did a great job, as a coach at Ider. Of course, he was a alumni and part of that program and was a great player for the school. And he did a great job of just trying to continue on that tradition of playing hard and getting the kids to understand the importance of what it means to be an Ider Hornet. So, I think the world of Brent. He's a good man. And, like I said, I can remember Brent. He's a few years younger than me. I think he was a seventh grader when I was a senior at Ider. So, I remember him when he was young playing in Pee Wees. So, it was just he's done a lot for the school and for many, many years.
Yeah, I know, Brent pretty well. And one thing about him, he is an intense individual. It don't matter what it is he's involved in. And I guess you remember, I had an interview back several years ago when I was doing play-by-play for K98, and the person asked me, and it was Jason Bowen from the Daily Sentinel in Scottsboro. He asked me from a standpoint of a single game performance, what was the best performance you ever saw? And I guess you probably remember this too. But it was the second half of the Plainview game when Ider beat Plainview at Plainview. He took over that football game, and it was amazing to watch him.
Yes, sir. I remember it well. I was standing on the sidelines.
Yeah.
We had got the ball late in the fourth quarter, and we were kind of backed up in our area, in our side of the field, and it might have been a second long or third long, and we gave him the football, and I know because I was in the coaches' meeting when we counted it, but 11 players, and I'm not talking about like just run through tackle, but there was 8 players that put a headgear on him in that run, and then towards the end of it, he got the first down. At the end of it, he was dragging 3 down the sidelines to get the first down. It was As a coach player, it was the most impressive run I ever seen at a high school football player.
I can remember that from the booth because it seemed like he ran forwards, backwards, whatever it took to put that team in scoring position to win that game. And that was a huge win for Ider at that time. Of course, Brent is a legend. He's in the Hall of Fame now. And the last time I talked to him, I think he still misses being at Ider. It's just that it was a better opportunity for his family to go to Fort Payne, but his heart still is at Ider.
Oh, yes. I go to church with him. Me and him talk all the time. So I stay in pretty good contact with him.
Well, Coach, I'm going to get into you now. What does it mean to be the head football coach at Ider High School?
Well, it's great to be able to come back home. I went to high school there. I loved it. It's great to try to instill in these young kids the things that were instilled in me when I was a player there. Hard work, dedication. Matter of fact, on the outside of our field house, one of the quotes on the outside of our field house was by my head coach, Coach Wells. And he used to say it all the time, and I can remember it today just like it was yesterday. If you work hard enough, long enough, you will be successful. And that kind of mindset is just great to be able to try to come back and instill that in these kids, because that was instilled in me. And it's just good to be back in the black and gold. I've got a little bias, but I think that black and that old gold is the prettiest uniform out there. And I just love being able to come back here and just try to continue on that tradition of good Ider Hornet football.
Well, you know, I can remember that, you know, and of course I played it Valley Head, so us playing Ider was a fun game. I mean, it was never dirty, never no mouthing. It's just all clean, hard football. And I remember when I come out and we played them my senior year, they come out in them old gold jerseys and black pants, and I was impressed by them. Them jerseys look good. I remember that back then. But Coach, tell us about your staff now. Are a lot of your coaching staff? Now I know Coach Hannah's there. I knew him from when he was at Valley Head, you know, assisting down there at one time. Who are your coaching staff, and what are their responsibilities?
Okay, well, Coach Hannah, he kind of stepped down from a varsity role this year. He's actually our junior high coach this year, and right now it is me and Coach Rayner. He stepped up to be our defensive coordinator. It's me and him that's actually on staff as far as in the school, and then I have two volunteer assistants, Jonathan Blevins and Seth Finch, who played ball at Ider, and also Jay Massey, who I play ball with, me and Coach Anna Bowe. He volunteers and he helps with junior high and helps us on Friday nights. And Coach Paul Bell, he tries to be there as much as he can. So that's kind of our staff right now.
Pretty much it. Okay, let's go in and look back up just a bit to last year. Of course, last year wasn't the kind of year you want to have. Your first year, y'all were pretty darn good. Y'all had a very good football team. Last year, you know, you lost several seniors from the year before, but last year you got kind of derailed early. Lost a couple of the key people you were counting on early in the season. A lot of kids got through into roles they just weren't ready for.
Yes, sir. You know, we went into last year, we lost a few kids, and that just happens. You know, that's kind of, you know, it happens. You just kind of have to deal with it. It is what it is, and you kind of move on and get other kids ready. But, you know, the thing about it is, and you know this, when you're a small school, when one or two players go down, it's not like you lose one or two positions, because those kids play in all three phases of the game. So you don't only lose an offensive player, you lose a defensive player. You lose a special teams guy, not just one special teams guy. You lose that guy on every special team. So, you know, it is tough, and we lost two, and not just two positions, but, you know, they were seniors. They had played a lot of ball and kind of the leaders leading us on. And, you know, it was a challenge. And yes, our kids, a lot of those kids were thrown into the fire. And that's what makes me, you know, I'm excited about this upcoming season, because those kids, they got battle tested last year, and they kind of know what to expect. Everything was kind of, those lights were really to play 4 quarters in a varsity football game. So, you know, it's a little tough when you lose on key spots, but the good part about it is, you know, those kids had to come in, and yes, it was tough, but I'll tell you this, and this is the reason why I love the Ider community, and is because even though, you know, that season didn't turn out the way it should, the kids still battled and they played hard, and people still came out and supported them.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, that's one thing you're going to say about the Ider football team. They're going to play hard, and that's like the game I saw against Crossville last year. Both teams laid it on the line, and it turned out to be a defensive stroke because both teams lost key people in that game. And y'all were fortunate that y'all were just, y'all made the defensive plays at the right time to win that football game. Of course, now this year, you got a lot of upperclassmen, don't have a lot of numbers because that's what, a lot of teams are struggling with now is that numbers game. But you've got a lot of veterans back. I think you've got 9 seniors on the team, and that's kind of the way you were a couple of years ago. So if you can stay healthy, you've got to feel pretty good about this year.
I do, and one thing that's a little different about this team than the team 2 years ago with those seniors is this team, I actually have quite a few younger guys that's going to be able to play some roles where, the team 2 years ago, I didn't have a freshman or a sophomore on that football team. It was all juniors and seniors on that football team. I just didn't have the kids in the classroom, but we are on the field in the locker room. And this year, I've got 10 freshmen, and I've got one offensive lineman that was an 8th grader last year that played quite a few snaps for us, and he's going to play a significant role this year, a big significant role. And I've got some freshmen and some sophomores that's really going to make a big impact this year for this team and give us a little bit of depth to get some of those older guys a little bit of rest where we can kind of keep them fresh. So I really feel good about the situation that we're in. We still got to stay away from injuries. That's the big key, but I really feel good about where we're at as a team right now. With our depth, even though, we don't have the numbers of some schools. We don't have 35. We don't have 40, but I feel good about the kids that we have.
Well, Coach, going into this year, I know you probably don't like to single out a whole lot of people individually, but who are you counting on early in the season, or who are the returning players that you expect big things out of?
Well, all those seniors that got thrown, that were juniors last year that got thrown into the fire, one of our defensive linemen, Landon Traylor, he was one of the only 10th graders in that first year. I said I didn't have any 10th graders, but I actually had a few that first year, but he was one of them. He's been with me the whole time. He's a senior this year. He's grown up a lot, and he's got a lot stronger, a lot faster. He's going to help anchor us on defense and offensively on the line. And, of course, I've got some really good skilled guys, Austin Cross, Griffin Weldon, Brody Hurd at tight end. Isaac Frisky's going to play defense for us. And linebacker's going to contribute and help us out. And, some newer guys that's come out, some skilled guys that's going to help us, on the outside and give us an opportunity to really to kind of try to move the ball around a little bit. And some of the younger kids, like I said, that's going to come out and really help us. We try our best. I told the kids, matter of fact, I had a conversation with them today at practice. Every kid has an opportunity to contribute somewhere on this team. That's our goal. Every one of them. It may be on special teams. It may be on offense, defense, wherever. We want everybody to have a role to contribute. Now, of course, it's up to them to put in the work and put themselves in the position to contribute. But we want every kid to be involved and engaged in the game and get reps. So I really feel good about it.
Well, and without saying, this is the kind of thing I look at in high school football, especially, is you're only as good as your weakest link. So it's good to get everybody involved in your program.
Yes, and you know this yourself, if you can get some of those younger guys or some of those guys that, we don't want to run into the situation we run into last year, where all of a sudden they're having to play a significant role, and this may be their first time to step out on the field. And now you're asking them to play 50, 60, 70 snaps a game, and they're still trying to learn what to do or the speed of the game. So our goal is to try to get as many of our kids acclimated to high school football as we possibly can. So you're right. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and we're trying to do our very best through fall camp to get everybody prepared to play on Friday night.
Well, Coach, of course, you started 2 years ago. You were a working process too. It's a big step to become a head coach. Now you're in your third year. I know the kids are comfortable with you, but do you feel a lot more comfortable being a head coach? Because, it's a working process for coaches too. People don't understand that coaches learn just as much as the kids do. And so do you feel a lot more comfortable now?
Oh, yes, sir. There's an old saying, you're never ready. No matter how ready you think you are, you're never ready. And, I've been coaching for a very long time, either in a volunteer aspect or as an assistant, and then as the offensive coordinator at Buckhorn, and I have to give a lot of credit to the coaches that I work for, Coach Wells and Coach Henderson at Buckhorn, that really helped me prepare. Coach Henderson helped me a lot in the administration part of it, of learning, what it takes, because, one thing you definitely learn when you become a head coach, it would be great if every coach could just go out there on the field and just coach. That's the easy part, to be honest with you. The hard part is all the administration stuff that you have to do. That's the toughest part for any coach. And I would tell any coach out there that's an assistant coach, that's the toughest part, is being able to learn how to manage all of it. And I feel more comfortable with that. That is true. And being able to manage all of that and the time. And plus, as that first year, it's all about building relationships, because that's what coaching is. That's what teaching is. Before you can make an impact with any kid, you got to build that relationship with them. So once you kind of establish your program and establish that relationship, then the kids kind of know what to expect. And that's kind of where we're heading. The kids kind of to learn what you expect and learn what's going to be tolerated and what's not going to be tolerated. And, it becomes easier just through the process.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, and another thing too I've noticed about football, used to, kids come out, they played, all of them wanted to play. Now you struggle to get kids out because they've got so much more to do. But also a head coach sometimes has to be a big brother, a father figure, because like you're talking about relationships with these kids, that's what it's all about, because there's a lot more things to do for kids now than just play sports.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's, and that's just the whole dynamic. And that's one thing that I love about football. And I've told people this before, and me and my wife talked about it, and I say this every year to my parents, quarterback club. My number one goal is not to make the best and greatest football player that's ever walked through. My number one goal is to try my best to build young men. That's my number one goal. Because in this world, we need men. We need men that's going to stand up and do what's right. And, we need men that's going to make good decisions, that's going to stand with their families, that's going to fight through adversity. And that's my number one goal, is to try to lead these young boys when they come to me in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, whenever it is, and try to be the example and lead them and understand that, you know what, everybody talks about being a man, but with that being a man, there's a lot of responsibility, and it's not easy. And life's not easy, and we have to embrace the hardships. And that's one thing we don't really, I'm not a big battle cry or sayings guy, but one thing that we kind of did this spring is, you know, we had a little saying, embrace the pain, when we talking about working out different things. Because when you're getting better, sometimes that hurts. And so we want to be a kind of team that can embrace that and get better and keep going no matter what adversity hits us.
Yeah, I think that kind of what you're saying, that kind of puts a focus on something else beside yourself, you know, kind of a goal type thing that, you know, that it's good for the football team. We know it sounds like, Coach, I mean, you're probably just like every other coach I talked to. In the media days, when I did Marshall County Lee Osmond, I asked him about this, and it kind of brought a tear to his eye. But, you know, for a coach, probably the most important thing is to watch a kid or a group of kids when that light comes on and they get it. You know, you can tell that by looking in their eyes. That has to be just exhilarating for you as a football coach.
Oh, look, while you were speaking, I'll be honest, I got chill bumps. Because as a coach, it happens, and you see it as clear as if, you know, and I go back because I'm you know, I'm older, you know, I grew up watching Bugs Bunny on Saturdays when that little light bulb would come up over the top of their head. Literally, as a coach, you almost see that when it finally clicks and they get it. And I've seen that in a lot of these kids. Matter of fact, one of the seniors that I was talking about earlier, Landon Traylor, you know, I've seen that switch flip in him just this year. And, you know, I've seen that going from a 10th grader to where, you know, I had the focus just wasn't there to actually becoming a leader. And, you know, when that switch flips, it's just a great thing. It makes everything worth it. And not just in football, but in life. Seeing that switch flip to where, you know, they're doing what they need to do outside of football. They're doing what they need to do in their schoolwork, you know, in the community, at home. And that's the greatest thing about being a football coach, is when you see that light bulb flip and that switch flip, and maybe, you know, you hope as a coach, maybe you had just a small part in helping that transition from a boy to a man. That's your number one goal, because I look in my own life, you know, that's what my head coach did for me, whether he realized it or not, is he helped me to transition. And sometimes he could reach me and I had a great day, but sometimes he could reach me and get me to do things that even my dad couldn't, just because of the relationship and the respect that was there.
Yes, definitely so. You know, and I remember as a player, when the light come on for me, it's amazing how the game slows down, and you don't have to be coached. You adjust on your own. You figure out what another player's weakness is, and you don't have to really depend on what the coach tells you. You figure it out for yourself, and that's what makes football fun, then, for kids. Well, Coach, let's go a little bit further. I know the season's coming up, and I want to ask you about this. Of course, y'all were due to play Crossville. I know y'all had moved the Crossville game back to the old tradition, because when I was in high school, Crossville and Ider, I always played on Saturday night, the first weekend of the year, and we always loved going to watch that game because it was always so good. Well, y'all got that tradition back, but now Crossville's not going to have a football team, so you're not going to have a game one. You know, and I'm kind of this. I hope this is not starting a trend. Of course, they're not completely canceling football. They're just going to kind of delay it for a while. But I'm afraid this is a trend we might keep seeing. And Lord knows I don't want this to happen.
Right, and I don't either. That's like, I'll be perfectly transparent and honest with you. You know, I'd heard when I got the job at Ider, I'd heard rumors that people were talking, well, you know, you're going to have a team this year, but I don't know if you're going to have a team next year, or you're not going to have a team the next year. And, you know, even when I first took this job, I mean, I heard that coming from, you know, some people in the community, or, you know, you just hear things, but, you know, and I hope that, you know, they're able to build the numbers. And of course, I've talked to Coach Williams a couple of times, and they've got some pretty good numbers, you know, in the younger classes. So I'm hoping by them being able to do this, they can kind of build it up. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to schedule it, just because of the tradition, because that's what we did. You know, when I was in school, we played Crossville, you know, on the first Saturday night of the season, and it was a huge game. Everybody from the county, I mean, it was a big game, big game. And
yes.
But I'm hoping that, you know, that it doesn't trend that way, and you know, I know Coach Williams will do a good job trying to build that program back up, and hopefully it won't. And you know, that's like us, our numbers are not great, but if you go back and look in the history of Ider, our numbers have always averaged about 25 to 30, and that's kind of what we got right now is about 25, and we're slowly trending up. More kids are getting interested in playing, you know. More kids are getting excited. You know, we've got a ton of kids out this year that we didn't have the year before. A lot of our younger kids are, you know, they're getting excited and coming out. So, you know, you just got to stay the course and keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully you get more kids involved in it. You know, football's a tough sport.
Yeah,
and that's the reason why, you know, I wish every boy in the school would play football. Not because I'm the football coach, but because, you know, it's hard. And it should be hard.
yeah.
And, you know, because I think out of all the sports, and I've played them all at some point in my life, football is the closest thing to life than any sport. Because it's hard. It's tough to be out there with about 50 pounds of equipment on in August, hitting and running around and doing all that. And it's tough. And it teaches about adversity and fighting through it, and just sometimes just surviving practice to get to the next day. But I'm with you. You know, it's so easy nowadays to just and it's not necessarily the kids' fault. It's just the society right now that we live in. It's just there's so much for them to do now. You know, and I'm sure you remember this because we're not much different in age. You know, when I was in school, everybody was either in the hayfield in the summertime or in the potato shed, and you couldn't wait for football practice to start because you knew you was getting out of the potato shed or you was getting out of the hayfield.
Yeah, because I remember one summer I hauled hay, and that was the easiest fall football practice I had. Because you was in shape before you ever even started.
Right.
I know exactly that's the way it is. And, you know, and a lot of what you're talking about, too, is kids now are not being taught a work ethic. And, you know, and it's not just parents fail them. It's all down the line. You know, there's a lot of things that happen, you know, and I see these young people that struggle with the work ethic. They want to, but a lot of them don't know how. And that's why playing, you know, extracurricular activities, whether it be in the band, whether it be baseball, whether it be softball, whether it be football, teaches kids a work ethic, and that's what our kids need.
Yes, and it's just a commitment. You know, you commit to do something and you follow through with it. And you know, that's the biggest thing. And I tell our kids in school all the time, you know, every spring, you know, when I go and talk to the younger kids, you know, this is my spiel to our younger kids, you know, that may be coming out of the Pee Wee program. If you want to be a part of something special, come join us and see what it's about. Because it is something special. You know, it is. I don't care if you are a high school student and you play an extracurricular activity, you are something special because you're giving extra part of your time for your school that you don't have to, but you do it because you either love the sport, you love your school, and you want to be committed to something greater than you. And that's the thing, and that's one thing I'm proud of this team because they've come close together, even though we have a lot of older kids and a lot of younger kids. They've kind of come together as a team, and, you know, sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes when you have a big group of seniors and a big group of freshmen, you know, a lot of times there's a big split there. But I've not seen this in this team. They kind of all collectively come together. And when you can do that as a team and come together as brothers, you can accomplish a lot of things because you become part of something bigger than yourself.
Coach, I want to ask you one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to Randy. He may want to ask you a few questions. The upcoming schedule, talk a little bit about it, your region, and kind of what your expectations might be. I know wins or losses, you know, is not something that, you know, you can rely on. And I wanted to, you know, make a statement too. When we had media days, you can tell your kids have a lot more confidence this year going into the season. I mean, you could tell it by the way they talked, by the way they handled themselves, you know. So, you know, and I'm looking for you to have a good year. But tell us a little bit about the schedule coming up and kind of what to expect.
Well, you know, we're having a controlled jamboree against Crossville to kind of replace our regular season game. But then we start out our actual season with Asbury, and, you know, I don't really know much about them because they changed coaches too. But then just as soon as we get done with it, we roll right into our region play with 3 region games right in a row. Whitesburg Christian, who was really good last year, and I'm sure they're going to be just as good this year. And then we've got a big rival game with North Side Mountain and Pisgah. And then we roll right into Valley Head, and then Section, and then Collinsville, Sandrock, and then we end the season with 5. I mean, you know, our schedule's tough. I think we have one of the toughest regions in North Alabama. I mean, there's really no off week. And, you know, it's always going to be tough when you play Northside Mountain or Pisgah. Pisgah's got a really good football team. They should be really good this year. You know, Collinsville, they'll be, if not as good, they'll be better. Section, Coach Edwards will do a really good job. They're going to be better this year. You know, Valley Head's going to be, even though, you know, they lost 2 very good running backs, they're still going to be really good. You know, there's just no off week. And all we want to do, and I kind of said this at media days, our kids, I've told them from day one, we want to go out there and play as hard as we can, and we want to give ourselves an opportunity in the 4th quarter to win the game. And I told them, I said, I believe in my heart if we can do that, the wins and losses will take care of themselves. And, you know, we got a tough road to hoe. That's the reason why all summer long we put a big emphasis on conditioning and weightlifting so we could prepare ourselves for this run. Because, you know, like I said, there's no off weeks in our schedule. We've got to knuckle down and be ready to play every Friday night because, you know, it's not like you're going out there and say, well, we'll just throw that black jersey out there and, you know, that's 14 points. Well, that's not true, because all these teams are pretty good, and it's gonna be a tough climb. But I think our kids are excited about the challenge and kind of ready to try to prove themselves, try to surprise some people.
Well, Coach, it's been a thrill talking to you. I'm going to let Randy take over, see if he has a couple of questions. And, of course, maybe something else we want to ask. But, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate your honesty on your answers. And, it's always good, because wins and losses are important. And I'm one of those people that I love winning, and they're important. But there's a whole lot more important things than just a football game. And that's kind of the way I like to do interview processes, because, if you go 5-5 or 2-8, you still have winners on the football team, because a lot of times, they come to work like last year. Your kids come to work knowing they were behind the 8 ball, but they just kept fighting, and that's what it's all about in high school football.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. Because I'll tell you what, we went through an 8 last year, but every one of them showed up for practice every day. And, a lot of times when you're going through a season like that, that's when, you have people start jumping ship. And we didn't have that last year. So that's very encouraging. And, I'm with you. There's nobody that hates losing more than I do. I mean, I don't care if it's Uno or checkers. I hate to lose. Yeah. But I always want to give ourselves a fighting chance. And, here's the thing. If we go out there and we play hard, that's all I ask the kids to do. And I can live and sleep at night peacefully if our kids go out there and play hard for 4 quarters. And that's all I ask them to do. And I feel good about it.
Randy, you want to go ahead?
Hey, Coach. First of all, thank you, and you and Phil covered everything. But let me ask you a couple of questions, and I want to go back to that first thing you and Phil started talking about. Your uniforms. This is the first thing on my list. It seems like other schools, especially at the college level, are now going into what has always been your tradition uniform, liking the black, the old gold. Is it something the kids embrace when they get to wear all black at home, and really, I guess so many other places want to do that now. It's your tradition. How do the kids react to it?
Oh, they love it. They love wearing them black jerseys. They love those black helmets. They love when we wear the black jerseys with the black pants.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, me personally, I like the black on gold, but they love wearing that.
Yeah,
that black. And I kid them all the time when we see teams that black's really not in their color scheme, but they want to. They have black jerseys. I kid them all the time. I say, see, everybody wants to wear black.
Yeah. It seems like every college has got a black version, even if it's got no black in the color. So
That's right.
I think you have the best uniforms at any local high school. I've always loved that uniform. And you do something that I love in that uniform. You put the name of the town on the front of it. Why is that important to you or the community?
Well, that's who we are. That's where we're from. That to me, like I was saying earlier, our community supports this football team. And I told the boys, even my first year there at Ider, one of the first meetings I had, I told that team, I said, one thing that I know for a fact, it was that way when I was here at Ider, is if you'll go out there and you'll play hard and you'll hit people in the mouth, I said, the folks here in this community will come out and support you.
Absolutely.
Whether you win every game or whether you don't. And those kids are proud to be from Ider. They're proud to have that Ider Hornet jersey on. And we get a lot of support for our community. And I'm just tickled to death to have that. and be able to represent our community. Because, you know, in a lot of cases, you know, we're losing a lot of these small town communities because of consolidation or different things that happen, and we lose that rivalry. And I can remember when I was in high school, man, there was nothing like going down. You know, you played back then because all of us was pretty close in the same classification, but you played almost everybody in the county, and it was great because you grew up playing these guys in Little League.
Right.
Because everybody played. If you were from Plainview, you played at Plainview, and you played them. So you grew up playing against these guys, and you couldn't wait to get on varsity to play against them.
You know, Coach, you led me into my next question I wanted to ask you, and then we'll kind of close up tonight. So many schools. I cover football in Tennessee. We cover some in North Georgia. Like where I grew up, they consolidated 2 single A high schools into a 5A high school now, and it's a county school. And where I'm at, it became where I cover now. You've still got a bastion over in the Sequatchie Valley of Whitwell, South Pittsburgh, and stuff. But North Alabama and Sand Mountain is the last real stronghold of community schools. You grew up in a community school. You coach at a community school now. Why is that important that we don't, just like you said, that identity's gone, and so many schools have consolidated, but that mountain, you have 5, 6 high schools just a few minutes apart, and that's important to the identity of of Sand Mountain.
Yeah, to me, it's great it just gives you that fire to play for your hometown. You know, you grow up, like I said earlier, you play Little League all the way up through, and you want to play for your community. And I really hope that stays that way. I know there's been talk for years about consolidating this school, consolidating that school. And yes, I see some of the advantages because before I was at Ider, I was at Buckhorn, and it was a big 6A school. And yes, there was a lot of advantages in being at a 6A school, you know, but I just like the fact that you have that community spirit, and that community loves that school, and they want to support it. They want to be a part of it. And it's great. I mean, it takes me back to when I was younger, and it's a good thing. And I've heard the advantages to it, and I see them a little bit. But I think if you ever do that, if it ever comes about, you'll lose that. And it has happened in North Alabama. You know, Bridgeport and Stevenson consolidated about, I guess, 20 years ago now. And, you know, it has happened, and they seem to have made it work for a long, long time. But it's just, you know, it's hard to be coming up there to Ider and seeing that stadium up on the hill as you're coming from the 4-way stop and then lights on. It's hard to think about that not being there anymore. Yeah,
Coach, that's a great point. I'll come back to you, Phil, and you can close this out. Coach, I do want to compliment you. I got to talk to your young men. Every one of them were yes sir, no sirs. Every one of them were so polite. Great kids that you have playing football at Ider, and can't recognize the kids that make the program run enough these days.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much. You know, they've got great parents, and I'm just tickled to death they allow me to be a part of their lives.
Absolutely. Phil, won't you close us out for the night?
Well, Coach, again, thanks for being with us. And of course, us at WQSB, when we're on the show, we root for everybody. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. The good thing I get to do in the position I'm in, being on a scoreboard show, is I guess John Kirby. He's the offensive coordinator at Head, and I went to school. He and I were on the same football team together. He used to tell me he kind of jigs me all the time. He goes, Phil, he said, you got it made. He said, you win every night. He said, we don't win every night, but you win every night, in the job you have. He said, you got it made. And, and I do because, we kind of sort of going to get on the bandwagon of the winners, but, you also root for the underdogs. So, and we think as much as them as we do the teams that win. So it's a big thrill that, you kind of take the rooting out of it, because I root for everybody. I want everybody to succeed. And the reason that is when those kids take those hats off, they're people. Everybody's the same. Mm-hmm. They're people, and you want them to be successful in the game of life. It does not matter, how many football games they win. You want them to be successful in the game of life.
You're exactly right. And that's the number one goal is for them to be successful when they leave your program.
100%. Well, Coach,
thank you very much. We've enjoyed it. Maybe we can do this again sometime.
Yes, sir. Anytime. I really appreciate you guys and what y'all do. Bill, I really appreciate what y'all do on the Scoreboard Show. Y'all are great for high school football and have been great for high school football for many, many years. And I really appreciate y'all guys allowing me to come on here and talk about our kids.
Coach, why it's been many years, called Phil's old. He won't admit it, but we all know it.
Yeah, 1985 when I graduated. I played 1984. That was a long time ago. Coach Allday was the coach at Ider at that time. I think Tommy Wells come after him, but Coach Allday was there then. And I got to know Coach Allday when I was in down Valley Head. We owned a store, and he used to come in every Saturday to the bank down here in Valley Head, and he'd come in and talk to me every Saturday. So I got to know him, and back in those days. But we had some great games against Ider, and I thought the world of Coach Allday.
Yes, sir. I actually had him. He was my driver's ed teacher when I was at Ider. He was still there teaching before he retired.
Yeah. So, well, Coach, thanks a lot, and we'll look forward to a great football season, and we'll look forward to talking to you again sometime.
And if you ever need us, Coach, if you ever need us, want to advertise something, got fundraisers going, just shoot us a text so we can support the kids.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Phil, that's an old school coach right there. That's a special coach. He, even at media days, he was one of my favorite. That was my first time of meeting Coach Grant, but he was one of my favorites by far.
Yeah, he really supports the kids. I'm glad he's having the success he had. And we heard that same rumor too about Ider. Coach Grant took over, but they didn't know if they was going to be able to field a team or not, except for that first year. And that rumor was coming around down here, but they've been able to survive that. And as he stays there, he'll build those relationships and he'll get more kids out. So I think Ider's in good shape right now.
I believe so. And we talked about how important community football was, and I think that's a fine example. I think it's important that we have the Valley Heads and the Iders and of course, there's highly successful programs in DeKalb and Jackson County. And even, Phil, when we talk about it, the stronghold goes up the whole valley, even into Tennessee, where we have South Pittsburgh, we have Marion County, two perennial state powers. Whitwell, who won a state championships a couple of years ago. A little farther up the valley, you get to Sequatchie County, then Blitzow County. And it's just these smaller schools that have thrived playing football. And I don't know that we need another 6A school, because I love all these 1, 2, and 3A schools. And frankly, Phil, I've had the opportunity to lead for bigger schools, but I enjoy being in 3A football,
Yeah, smaller schools is where it's at. You don't ever want to see. Eventually it's going to happen, but, I think it's kind of ruined football in Georgia because most of their schools have combined.
Yeah.
And there's, kids that would want to play football or not necessarily great players, get left out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you want to see these kids participate. Yeah, in the 9th grade, he may not be much of a football player. If he sticks with it by his senior year, he's going to be pretty good, and he's going to gain a lot from it instead of standing in the bleachers watching a game or not participating at all. It knocks a lot of kids out of getting to play. And, you used to talk about up in the Valley, too, Coach Hollis and North Jackson, they're playing South Pittsburgh now every year. Man alive, that's huge because,
It is.
with North Jackson losing the Bridgeport-Stevenson, that hurts. But when they go back and they play like this year, they're playing Scottsboro, Pisgah, and South Pittsburgh. Well, that brings that Bridgeport-Stevenson people back because that's the old schools they were used to playing back in the Bridgeport-Stevenson days. And it really wasn't that long ago. I think the school's been there since 1997, I want to say. But I know Coach Hollis told me one year that when they played South Pittsburgh, they was expecting a $35,000 gate.
Yeah.
So, when you have games like that, I wish more of our teams in Tennessee and Alabama could play a little bit more, but the contracts make it hard unless you're playing maybe against a private school.
And they're opposite
their
years.
schedules are not on the same year. When they schedule their contracts, they're offset from each other.
Yeah, Tennessee's, I think, is odd years and Alabama's even years. So you have to get a 3-year contract to somebody, or somebody, even in that situation, the 4th year, somebody ends up playing 9 football games, and those gates are too valuable for the programs to lose them, Phil. So it's a good point. And I know last year that South Pittsburgh, I was not there, but I actually got to watch the film of the game, and South Pittsburgh North Jackson was one of the best high school football games I saw all last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because that game means something. I mean, not only are they next door neighbors, but, anytime if you're a team from Alabama and you play a team from Tennessee and vice versa, you do not want to lose to the opposing state.
Yeah.
So, because that's kind of a measuring stick. That's how you measure your program. Well, how do we compare to Alabama schools? How do we compare to Tennessee schools? And that's a great way of giving a measuring stick, because we have a lot of teams that play from down here, play teams from Georgia and from Tennessee. And a lot of the times it's private school games.
Yeah.
But it kind of gives you a measuring stick of where your football program is.
I've talked about it for years, Phil. How good would it be on the Friday night before Tennessee and Alabama plays at like Finley Stadium? You have 5 play South Pittsburgh, or you have North Jackson play South Pittsburgh, or North Jackson play a team that's just across the state line. Folks are coming up from Alabama, headed to Knoxville, or they're from Knoxville heading down to Tuscaloosa. Be a natural stopping point along the way.
Yeah, naturally. And one that we'd like to see, of course, they played in the spring, and it wasn't a real game, but wouldn't you like to see Chattanooga Christian play against Fife?
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be a great matchup.
Yeah.
It'd be a great draw. I'd be there if there's any way possible, because that would be one to see. Because, of course, I saw them two play each other. Fife's they're a real physical team, and they're going to want to get you in the 4th quarter. The Chattanooga Christian has so many athletes, and if they can get ahead of you, they're going to be hard to beat. So it'd been nice to see them playing a 4-quarter real game to see who dictated tempo, because whoever dictated tempo would win that game.
Yeah, or Phil, that's the smaller school. Then you could get to the larger schools, like a Bradley Central against a Fort Payne. That would just be great.
Yeah, oh, definitely so. Yeah, and the fans would love it. I mean, they really would love it.
Well, Phil,
and seeing that's what we're we was talking about how Crossville's not having a football program. That's what worries me, because if that keeps happening, and I don't wish ill will on either, but what if Collinsville doesn't field a team and Crossville doesn't field a team and Galesville decides not to field a team? Well, you know what's going to happen. The state and the counties don't have any control over it. Like right now, I guarantee DeKalb County don't want to consolidate schools, but one of these days the state's going to make them do it.
Absolutely.
And if you start losing athletic programs, the states will do that. They'll make these schools start consolidating, whether they like it or not.
Phil, you are 100% right, and we don't want that. So get out there, support, play, gather, be part of your program, local program. Phil, I'm going to get this interview keyed up real fast, and I'm going to take a little break here. We're going to take about a 30-second break while I get the interview keyed up. So I'm going to play something for them watching us. And then while we're doing that, we'll get the interview that we're going to cover keyed up. So everybody enjoy this. Tell you what, I'm going to play a commercial from 1973. Bear Bryant and Golden Flakes, Phil.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
A strong football team doesn't just happen by accident. It takes hard work and know-how, like knowing how to throw a football. The great taste and freshness of Golden Flake snack treats doesn't just happen either, like Golden Flake corn chips. It takes Golden Flake's special blend of corn to give the Golden Flake corn chips their great tasting flavor, and Golden Flake's fast delivery to make sure that corn chips are crunching fresh every time. Or take the Golden Flake cheese curls. They are just cheesy enough with a perfect crunch on every bite. Just as there's more than one way to throw a football, there's more than one way to satisfy a hungry appetite. That's why Golden Flake has a team of snack treats to make sure they have the snack treat that will satisfy you. Buy Golden Flake. And remember, the Tide develops the know-how when it comes to football, but Golden Flake has the know-how when it comes to snack treats.
All right, Phil. I know, folks, we're not sponsored by Golden Flakes, but I found that field, and I think it's so fun to watch. And I grew up watching that Paul Bear Bryant show and him endorsing Golden Flakes and, of course, Coca-Cola. And I just love that I found that commercial to play to give us a little break here.
Yeah, well, how times have changed. Of course, Bear Bryant not around anymore. But that now that Golden Flake is not any of Golden Flake's potato chips are produced in the state of Alabama anymore.
That's crazy.
I seen a thing where if you go into a store and find Golden Flake potato chips with October 16th on them, they were made in Alabama. After that, they're not.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, Phil, I've got an interview I want to play here, and it's a real special interview to me. Of course, poor Coach Medley, I kept getting his name wrong. I was so excited. So if you hear me call him the wrong name, it's not that I call him the wrong name. It's I slaughter his last name. But Aaron Medley was a kicker at UT, 2014 to 2018, second leader scorer in ball history now as a kicker. And he's doing something quite interesting, Phil. He is now with James Wilhoit, another name we all know that was a kicker at UT. He is a Phil, are you still there? Phil, did I lose you?
Yeah, you just dropped off.
Oh, okay. Well, Phil, as you know, he Coach Medley works with James Wilhoit, a former Vol too, with the James Wilhoit kicking camps now, and for kickers. And we have experience. We have a very good friend in Brian Smith, whose son Isaac's a very high level kicker, and actually works with Coach Medley. And it was just a privilege to get to talk to a former Vol, someone that played at the Battle of Bristol, has a kick 4 years for the Ball, somebody we saw kick a million times, Phil.
Yeah, Deck's a very successful kicker too. I mean, he was very good when you played at Tennessee.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And it was a joy to get to see him. Anytime you have former Vols that are around, it's nice to see. As any players that are around, anytime you can get to interview them, no matter who they played for, it's a lot of fun because you learn a lot of things behind the scenes. I played high school football, but I didn't play college football, so there's a lot of things I don't know.
Yeah, and we get into that, and I'm going to stop here in just a minute and ask you about some comments he makes about the Tennessee current football program. But I butchered the introduction, and you can tell by how bad I butchered his name. If somebody asked me to sing Bing Crosby's 20 best hits, I could sing a medley of hits, but for some reason it was in my head and I couldn't get his name right. And I just started calling him Coach. I asked his permission to call him Coach. So let's get into this interview a little bit, and we're going to start right after I've introduced him.
Good to be here to join and kind of talk about just anything and everything. A little bit on the careers and coaching in general. So kind of see where life has taken me, post college. And I think it was 6 years ago now. So time's flying by.
Well, my friend's son Isaac calls you coach. So if I may, I'm going to call you coach too, because anybody that coaches young people, you're investing your time and effort into that.
Oh, for sure. And, I think for me, the reward is seeing some of these guys when they're starting out, like, 8th grade, 9th grade. And I've been around it long enough to see those guys like start to excel, like in the college ranks, wherever they end up. And so that's been really cool for me to kind of see the journey from the other perspective. And then also like going through it myself, giving them some advice and, how to approach some of the situations that they're in.
Well, looking back at UT, just a couple of quick questions that I come across. One, I wanted to ask you about the number 25. Did you wear that for a reason?
So, so the James Woolhoyd, who's a guy, and we've kind of become very close over the years. When I was probably, I want to say end of my 8th grade year, that spring, I had met with him for the first time. We did one lesson, and I think I probably said 3 words the entire 2 hours. So it was, for me, it was just like this guy who, I had grown up just watching on TV and, the name that came with it and everything. And so it was like, for me, it was just like I don't even think I learned how to kick at all. I think I was just starstruck. But after that, I think that, everything that he had done for me, just through the recruiting process, and back then, what he has now is kind of night and day from the operation that, he was running, when I was coming through, being one of his first clients. But, to me, it was like somewhere to pay homage to him and really show that that brotherhood with, UT football. So, and that was kind of the big reason. Now, the interesting thing is at the time, he was the second all-time leading scorer. And I think my senior year, about halfway through, I actually passed him on the charts. That was a pretty cool moment. So it's Jeff Hall and then me and then James. So we'll see who the next guy is. But have to play all 4 years, so it's going to be hard to beat.
Every time I see someone dress, Phil, that just goes to show you, invest in young people and they stays with you forever. At the time, James Wilhoyd, probably and very well known in the Chattanooga area, took his time to invest and coach, and that's important to build the future of footballing.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I mean, because you inspire young people. You never know what they're going to turn out to be. You never want to discourage them. Because it's like I want to tell kids, or do tell kids, dream and dream big. Don't compromise. Dream big. Somehow, some way you can make it happen. And if it don't quite get the way you want it to, you can always adjust your goals. But still, dream big, because you never know what will happen. And and kids that are encouraged have a whole lot more opportunity to be somebody.
And Phil, in this interview a little later, I'll stop it again. They actually are placing kickers in colleges and helping coaches. And I found that real interesting, that if you're a D3 school and you need a kicker, you can come to the Will Hoyd kicking camp, which Coach works for, and he'll have a list of 4 or 5 kickers that can fix your spot. So invaluable. Kids not only getting to play college football, but getting an education too.
Yeah, well, but what's great about that is, these smaller schools don't have the funds to get out and do a whole lot of recruiting. And so somebody kind of does it for them. And a lot of times it's, like a D3 school, they just need to field a kicker. They don't have time to go find one. So if somebody finds them one, that makes their job a whole lot easier. Then they can concentrate on on the important things, because they don't have a recruiting staff.
Right.
More than likely, it's the coaches there that does every bit of it. And they depend on word of mouth a lot of times when it comes to recruiting athletes.
And then when you hear me stutter, I'm not starstruck or nothing. I'm telling you, Phil, this one was hard for me, because you know how much I looked up to Coach as a player, and I was just glad to get an opportunity to talk to him. And I found So much good information. Let's get back in this interview. He talks about Tennessee football, current state coming up soon. Just in 25 that's not kicking after you and James came through the university. I'm kind of like, something's wrong with this pitcher. You know, I know we have a running back wearing 25 now. It's like our place kickers always being number 25.
Well, when I played, Josh Smith, who was, kind of the Knoxville hometown guy, he also wore 25. And so, like, after games, like, I would get handed, like, photos of him and kids, like, asking me to sign it. And I'd have to tell, like, that guy's back there. It's not me. But, no, it was a fun 4 years. Looking back, I think the amount of guys that I played with that are, ended up in the NFL and are going on, second and third contracts now. It's just really, really good to see, those guys kind of succeed and achieve their dream.
I spoke with Steve Hamer, who runs the Vol for Life. I guess he's involved with the Vol for Life, and he was talking about Coach Heupel and Danny White really reaching out through that program. Have you had the chance to talk to Coach Heupel or A.D. White about the program and get involved in any way with the program now?
So I haven't talked to the AD. He's probably running around pretty busy. But I will say that from around the moment that Heupel came in, it was pretty much an open invitation. And there's been a couple times where, I work in Knoxville sometimes now with my job. And so, after work, I just go hang out at the facility and, if they're all, walking by or whoever's there, it's always kind of been an open door policy. And, being a former player, like, I can really, really appreciate that. And there's been situations where it's just been me and Heupel, like, kind of one-on-one for about 10 minutes, just talking about, whatever. So that's been really good to see. He's very accessible. And I think that, getting grounded and not letting kind of some of the marketing stuff, it being UT and probably one of the biggest, schools from a marketing perspective, sometimes you can get caught up in that. But I think he's done a really good job of keeping kind of everybody focused on just playing football and playing good football at that. So that's been fun to see. And, now it's kind of fun to go back and, you see some of the teammates that you played with, and you're kind of like, just remembering stuff that, happened on the field or, in class or whatever. So it is a good feeling to get everybody back, and kind of join in and watch, the next group kind of achieve, and possibly do what we couldn't. So that's really good to see.
Phil, I think that is endorsement to what position our football program at the University of Tennessee's in. That Coach Heupel is that accessible and kind of stays away from, as Coach put it, kind of stays away from the marketing end of it and keeps grounded in football.
Yeah, and you can tell that. When we're going to the Big Arch Caravan both times, he's very accessible. When you talk to him, he listens to you. He'll joke back and kid with you. And he's a very good people person. And that's what it takes at this level. Yeah, he's not up in the clouds and worried about what his image is or what he wears. He kind of dresses like we do. Comfortable Saturday afternoon, let's go play some football, and we'll talk about it at the end. And, and the thing is, and you hear players say this, I hear it a lot of times. I don't know how many of them have been asked, and they said, what do you think about Coach Heupel? And every one of them will say, I just don't want to disappoint him. He believes in me, so I believe in him, and the last thing we want to do is disappoint him.
I think that open door to former players are more important than us as fans see it. If you're a kicker, you're Chase McElrath last year, and you have a question about kicking, your resources are James Wilhord or Coach Medley, away from the coaching field, just, the mental part of it, that's huge to me.
Well, and you get to see those people because he's put up with those legends. He made the big kick. It didn't matter if he missed all 99 of his other field goals. He made the big one. So he goes down in history with some of them other guys. So it's nice to be around them a little bit so that you know that you're in good company rather than you just see them on the wall. You actually get to meet them.
Yeah. Phil, I'm going to start the interview up again, and we get into the Will Hoyd kicking camp now. And I want to stop you after he talks a little bit about kicking as an art, and it's so hard for high school kids to learn that or get the coaching they need. You know, we talked to Coach Grant just a minute ago. He has 2 full-time assistants. You know, unless he has somebody that maybe kicked in high school, his kicker is probably not getting that professional level of coaching like you might get at your quarterback at Sylvania that has Coach Van who played at a high level, you know?
Yeah, because mostly all they want to do, hey, we just need to kick that between the uprights for extra points, and we won't worry about anything else.
Yeah. Okay, let's get this restarted here.
Love it, and I love. I'm an alumni too, and I love the former players being involved with the program, and it just adds so much to me. But you know, I could ask you 1,000 questions about your playing career, but what we're here to talk about, I think, is there's a lot of parents and a lot of people like me on the periphery of high school football and middle school football that see kids struggle to kick. And I do play-by-play at Sequatchie County, and we had one kicker last year who got hurt, and we were literally on the soccer field auditioning people to kick. It is a lost art, and it's an art that's hard to find coaching if you don't go in the private sector. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got involved in that.
Sure. So, and I'll say this, you know, the industry has changed a lot since probably like the mid-2000s. To give kind of a general overview of the industry on the kicking side, you know, for your national coaches, you've got Jamie Cole, Chris Saylor, so they kind of run like your rankings. So they're not huge on instruction, but it's, you know, it's kind of going to you know, validate yourself against some of the best guys in the country, and it's kind of like almost like the PGA Tour, right? Where they just kind of go around. The best guys show up every week, and you know, you kind of, you know, claim your spot. What we do is a little bit different. So we're primarily focused on the instruction and the actual training part. So we're going to make you better. We're going to get you, you know, your research and development periods. We're going to get a little bit of competition, but most of what we want to do is be able to kind of shape and mold and over the course of 2 to 3 years, ideally, and you know, give your best shot at, you know, whatever potential you have, you know, to go to college and possibly earn a scholarship. So back in 2009, I think, James started doing a little bit of private training. He didn't really know a whole lot as far as, you know, the technique and stuff. He was just kind of basing everything of what he knew. But there was another guy that he went to get training at, and then pursued like the Arena Football League for a little bit, but was really, really good. Got to probably an NFL type level, just never got the opportunity. So then he decided to start, you know, coaching, and now we've built this business up. I think he's going into his 14th or 15th year now, to where we're training about 150 guys across the state, and you know, we've got a senior.
Bill, I want to stop there. 150 kickers across the state. That's huge. Then when you start thinking about how many small colleges are within a 5-hour window of this, and you probably got 150 open spots in that little bit of area. And this is not like something that's, you know, this is kind of individualized to this area. It's not like you got the same thing going on in Kentucky and down in Florida. We're lucky to have this in this area.
Yeah, definitely so. And, you know, and kids, if they want to get to college and play college football, you know, a lot of, you know, people like us, we weren't talented enough to, you know, to play at a tackle position or anything like that.
Right.
You know, maybe we could have went somewhere and played at a D3 school, but I wasn't going to go way up on north and do something like that. But there's 2 things you can do to get into college. One is a kicker. You know, everybody knows that. 2 is a long snapper.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that is 2 positions, and it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of discipline, but there's room for you. You can weigh 150 pounds and be a deep snapper on a college football team and go to school 4 years and get an education.
And that comes up a little later, and that's so important. parents. There's a link to the kicking camp on the front side of RiverCity-Media too. Phil, they have. You just can't show up and them take you as a client. You've got to have some kicking ability, and they open these camps. From what I understand, it new client camps where if you want to get some coaching, you can come in the new client camp. And they're what Coach Medley will talk about a little bit. But, if you can make a 25-yarder, they'll get you in and get you some coaching. But let's get back to the interview. A lot to get through.
Training program where we've got 20 guys and probably 18 to 19 of them are going to be playing college football, either as a preferred walk-on or full scholarship. So, what we've built, I would say rivals, as far as placement and end result, any group out there. Whether you've got, there's some in Atlanta, there's a few in Birmingham, I think there's one in North Carolina, and a few kind of scattered across the country. But it's a hard industry if it's not your main job, because you think about time and effort and the weekends and kind of everything that comes along with that, the travel, and especially being in Nashville, like the cost of living is up. It's going to be a spot where and James has it right on the money, where he's working at Brentwood Academy, and having the field access and everything, so it works well. But I think that's kind of why you don't see a lot of coaches doing it, just because it's just very hard to get in and stay in those markets and actually make make a name for yourself.
I understand that the instructions that you're able to give, and we deal with it a lot, or I see it a lot. There's not a lot of really good kicking instruction outside the private industry. With you offering this, do you have kids that come that just say, I want to be a kicker, or I've been kicking for 2 years and I just know to hit the football?
Yeah, we kind of get all walks of life. We have some that are, hey, I'm just getting into sports in general, and I thought I'd start, kicking. We have others that were a really heavy soccer background that kind of realized, like, hey, I'm probably middle of the road as a soccer player, but I've got a really strong leg. Maybe I try kicking now, and we've seen that one work out. I was kind of an anomaly. I never played soccer. I kicked in the backyard for, since I was like a little kid, but just never really pursued it. And then one day, we were, out in practice at Pop Warner, and somebody's like, well, we got to find somebody to kick off. And so the whole team, tried out, and, of course, by far, I was the best one. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm pretty good. So might as well pursue it, right? So that's that, and sometimes you just never know. And I've got other kids that, day one, it's like, man, you got a lot of work to do. And then by, year two, they're like, oh, they're actually pretty good. They picked it up.
Right.
And so that's always fun to see. But yeah, I think if you're somebody who's thinking about doing it, and, there's never really a wrong time to try out. But ideally it's 8th or 9th grade. And then just, continue to get in the weight room. And that's another thing that's changed a lot over probably the last 6-7 years is athletes are starting to become kickers, right? I think the mantra has always been, well, kickers are just kind of these squirrely, itty bitty guys who can just kick a ball a long way and they don't really do much. Well, that's changing. There's a lot of guys that I'm looking at, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not in your class, because you would run circles around me.
But even
so, Phil, I think there's a great point there. You were like me, probably played punt, pass, and kick when we were in the 6th, 7th grade. I wanted to be a punter so bad I couldn't stand it, and we got that same call that Coach is talking about to come everybody punt and see who punts the farthest. I nailed mine, and I was so proud of it. And he came back and hit the long snapper in the head, so I never got to punt. It really was that simple back a few years ago. Just everybody lines out, and whoever can kick it the farthest is the kicker.
Yeah, it used to be that way. It's not different. Now you watch in college, the kicker's got to be a pretty good athlete because sometimes he's the last line of defense.
Yes, and we talked about Isaac a little bit in this interview. Isaac's a very high level, played internationally on developmental teams, soccer player, and I've talked to his dad some. It's going to be tough for him to do this at the next level, is play soccer and football. And a lot of these kids are making those decisions because they've got, like Isaac, they've got talent both ways. I think Isaac's very developed already as a soccer player, but even this camp with his strong legs, I asked Coach about it later about working with soccer players are the bad habits to break, and he's like, absolutely. So let's get back into this interview, and I'll stop it again when we get to the scholarship part.
I got a special close here tonight, so I'm going to give it
Oh,
over to my
I just
other
messed this up, Phil.
2, 3, 4. And we're here. Very special guest today with us. And as you're hearing this, I am so excited to have him. And I watched this young man kick for years, enjoyed his play. Coach Aaron Medley of the Tennessee Volunteers, formerly. Welcome aboard.
Hey, it's good to be here. Good to be here to join and kind of talk about just anything and everything. A little bit on the careers and coaching in general. So kind of see where life has taken me, post college.
Yeah.
And I think it was 6 years ago now.
Absolutely.
So time's flying by.
Well, my friend's son Isaac calls you coach. So if I may,
But I am restarting it. Maybe it'll catch back up with us a little bit. But you make a good point, and we may have to split this interview into 2 parts later, but we'll let it run for a minute. This does open up a new avenue for us to have some clients on here, and maybe set this interview into a two-parter, and then next week we'll cover this interview, the second part of this interview. The first part of it's so interesting. We were about to get into the part where he talks about scholarships and everything else that's available through the camp. But I think that's a good idea. Let's break this into 2 parts because we're hitting our hour and a half limit too, and we'll have the second part of this interview next Monday.
Okay, well that sounds like a winner.
And
of course, it was great to have Coach Grant on. He's full of information and likes to talk, and it's a pleasure to get to talk with him. I know he'll call in on Scoreboard Show on Friday nights, and he's very open, very transparent, and that's what makes it fun when you have coaches that are like that.
Absolutely, Phil, and it's great that we are starting to get some real guests with Coach Medley on here. We'll, like having him on here for this second interview next week will be real important for us. And I love that we're getting people like Coach Grant and Coach Medley on here. Matter of fact, I tell you what I'm going to do, Phil. When this is over, I'm going to release just the interview, the whole interview too, on RiverCity-Media, and then we'll do the second part of it next week too.
Okay, that sounds like a winner.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, and we will have the entire interview up with Coach in just a couple of minutes, and we'll have the second part on RiverCity-Media on Behind the Booth next week. Thank you for joining Phil Harris and Randy Cunningham.